Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about our informative essay, which is our next major assignment in this class. So before we get started with that, we want to talk about how to use sources. And using sources is really important, and using them correctly is even more so. So we are going to look at the 3 easy rules for using a source in MLA. So this PowerPoint is available on our Blackboard site, as you can see, and you can follow along with the PowerPoint, or you can just listen to the video. So we'll wait a minute while the PowerPoint pops up. Hopefully everybody is doing well in the course and you're enjoying the course so far. We'll try to make sure that these videos are posted frequently so you have an opportunity to have somewhat of a lecture. So there are 3 rules that you need to remember from using a source. So basically, you can either quote a source, you can summarize a source, or you can paraphrase a source. So as you may know, quoting is a direct word-for-word reproduction of an original source. So a lot of times in papers, I'll see students quote like a statistic. Well, statistics are great and good information to use in a paper, but not necessarily something you want to quote because you can typically rephrase or paraphrase the information surrounding the statistic. Quotes are typically only used when language is memorable or it has that kind of, I couldn't have said it better myself type of appeal. So if you decide to use a quote, if you find something that you look at it and you go, ooh, I couldn't rewrite that and have it say the same thing, well, there you go. There's a great quote. Quotes require quotation marks, obviously. They require the name of the person who provided the quote. So just like dialogue in a book, you need to let us know who said the quote. It could be an organization, so you can say like according to the American Heart Association, and then something on their site, but most likely it's going to be an individual or a person. So definitely providing the quote, the person who said the quote, and then we want to provide the credentials of that person who said the quote. So for example, we have a couple pieces below that say Charles Jones, director of the Sports Institute of Kansas, stated that. So what that does is instead of just saying Charles Jones stated, we don't know who Charles Jones is. We don't know what his credentials are or why you decided to pull a quote from Charles Jones. So by giving his credentials, it adds that ethos to your paper that you want. Or you could say something like, according to Charles Jones, director of the Sports Institute of Kansas, and then you provide the quote. Now, make sure as well you provide the citation at the end of the quote. So quotes can be a little heavy because you have to provide the name, the credentials, the quotation marks, and then the citation. So make sure if you decide to quote something, you follow those rules. Block quoting is another option. A block quote is when you have 4 lines of text or more. Again, it's a direct word-for-word reproduction of an original source, but what happens then is that you block quote it. So if it's a long quotation, and now I don't recommend that you do this very often, but perhaps you come across a very interesting quote that is a little bit longer, you can block quote that. Now, block quotes don't require quotation marks, but they do need to be indented 5 spaces beyond the paragraph indent. So you can see the example below. So the other way to use a source is summarizing. So a summary and paraphrase are similar but different. So a summary is, so let's say your instructor says to summarize chapter 4 of the text. So what are you doing? Well, you're reading chapter 4 of the text, and then you're taking like this much content and you're condensing it down into this much content. So a summary is condensing large amounts of information and putting it into a smaller amount of information. You're summarizing it. You're bringing it all together and looking at key points. So in this case, summaries still require an MLA formatted citation. So for example, if you took maybe an essay or a couple pages of an essay and you condensed it into this, in dosage calculations, it's important to determine quantity if the physician orders something different than what is available. So in that case, you condensed information, maybe a couple paragraphs down into a sentence, and then you would put the parenthetical or in-text citation after that. So where it was found and the page numbers that you are summarizing. So for example, you have Lane 46 to 47, or you could summarize by saying Adam Lane emphasized the importance of exact dosage calculations in his research, and then you're just putting page numbers. Finally, the last option that you have is paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is basically taking this amount of information, and basically you might even come out with this amount or an equivalent amount of information. So let's say you find 2 or 3 sentences, you really like them, they're not memorable enough to quote, then you would want to paraphrase. So it's taking the information and then putting it into your own words. So making sure you're restating it, but you're restating it in your own words. Now, this does, again, require an MLA citation because we need to know where you got the information. But for example, if the original text read, in view of the many changes in government regulations relating to drug therapies and drug reactions, consumers are urged to check prescription inserts for added warnings and precautions. Phew. Well, you could take that and you could rewrite it and make it probably a little bit more friendly and say something like, it is important for patients to read their prescription information and inserts to stay informed about government regulated changes and precautions. Basically says the same thing, right? It's just paraphrased. It's just written in your own words. Now, again, in this case, we don't have a known author from this source. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a shortened version of the article title within quotations within the parentheses. So there you go. 3 easy rules for using a source.